Okay, so let's get technical. Let's talk about and explore different methodologies of engaging with customers in questioning and listening skills, and how the world from a questioning and listening perspective looks. Yeah, this is a generic overview. I'm going to cover four different methodologies of asking questions. It's a very light touch conversation, but really I want you to walk away with a little bit of a deeper understanding that there are different ways of doing this. It's not quite simple and straightforward as you seem. And I do have to say, I've done a lot of work with role plays with people over the last 5 months, specifically on this topic. And I found that most people think they're pretty good at it, but actually, when it comes down to asking questions, the initial question, not too bad, but not perfect. But then the follow up questions, most people are pretty poor at that because they've not taught themselves how to process information properly, how to actively listen, and how to engage in a proper dialogue with people. You're right. We're usually too busy thinking about our own thoughts. Anyway, let's step into this. Where does the art of listening come from? Quickly move that over. But Socrates was a Greek philosopher. He was the father of listening skills. Yeah, right. So he was what it was all about. Yeah. So he let me just get this. There we go. Yeah. So he was the father of listening skills. Yeah. Right. He was the one that we look back and say he was good at it. Yeah. Right. It was his passion. It was his belief, and he drove through on that. He actually died for this. Yeah. Right. He believed in it so emphatically. Yeah. He believed that you use questions to stimulate critical thinking. Now, that's a really important point. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get our clients, by asking the right questions, to think about the world in a different way. Yeah. Now, it's done innocently. It's not done in a leading way, but we do want people to think about things differently. Discuss deeply philosophical questions. He wants to go into questions. He wants to discuss the questions. It's about drilling down on this. His philosophy was very, very interesting from a questioning perspective. Each person, he believed, had a unique soul. Each person should seek to understand their true self. He had many enemies, and he was sentenced to death by drinking hemlock. Yeah. But he could have escaped, but his principles and his beliefs kept him there, and he died. Yeah, right, for his beliefs, technically. Yeah. So, method one. Let's talk about the Socratic method. Socratic method. Yeah. Define what someone is looking for ahead of time. Break the problem into a series of questions ahead of time. The answers should help discover what the person is seeking, and use a negative method of idea elimination. So, I'm not an expert in this. This is not. I don't use the Socratic method. My understanding or interpretation of what they're saying here is you're getting rid of the negative things, yeah, right, and what you're left with is the answer, sort of thing. Yeah? A little bit like Sherlock Holmes. Yeah. So ask as many questions as you can. Don't stop to discuss. Just you answer the questions. Write down every question as stated. Change any statement into a question. Yeah. So. That's the Socratic method. Look, I think it's very good for brainstorming. I think it's good for drilling down. Excuse my spelling and typo here. Right? I've just noticed that. That's the second time I've seen it. Never mind. So, method two, my favorite, or one of my favorite, yeah, right, is by a guy called Chris Voss. It's the hostage negotiation methodology. It's from a book called Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if your life depended on it. Yeah, he really worked hard on building out a hostage negotiation methodologies, and he changed the face of how the FBI does it and how they navigate through this process with scenarios. So number one, the tone of voice you use, radio DJ voice or a humorous, playful voice is critical. Number two, ask a simple question. Simple, right? Listen intently and actively is a lot easier said than done. Mirror the last three words of what the person said with an upwards inflection. Pause for 4 to 5 seconds, 6 seconds, and then repeat the process. Yeah. And the pause is critical. You've got to let the person talk. Often I see people when they're practicing this methodology, they're so busy thinking of the next question that they're not actually listening and letting the person finish what they were saying and processing that information. So that's number one, or number two, technically, yeah. Number three is Sales EQ by Jeb Blunt. I really like this guy. And he's got a very interesting take on things, yeah, right? He wants you to think, what do your clients think? Think about what it's like to be a client. And there's definitely a different journey going on there from your journey, okay? So the first thing they're asking is, do I like you? Second thing they're asking is, do you listen to me? Third thing they're asking is, do you make me feel important? Do you make me feel of value? The fourth thing is, do you get my problems? And the fifth is, do I trust, do I believe you? You know? So think, what's my journey? How do I get this to happen? You know? That's why we like the structure of our first meeting. It takes you on a journey that at the end, your client should be saying yes to all of these things. And trust's a little bit difficult because I think that takes more time than just an hour, but it's that journey started, yeah? Okay, so what's the process for EQ sales questioning and listening? Number one, and let me just move this out of the way here, an easy opening question that the stakeholder enjoys, okay? So that's your first point. They enjoy answering. It's a very simple question. It can be, obviously you're building your bank of questions. That's what we're talking about. Number two, reward the stakeholder through active listening and sincere interest. Number three, avoid interrupting or talking over the stakeholder. So it's a big mistake I personally make. We don't want to be interrupting. We want to let the person talk. Okay. Number four, pause 3 to 5 seconds before speaking and never fill the silence. If you talk, you break the loop, okay? And then once the loop's running, they'll start to self-disclose. Center your questions on those follow-up questions with active listening, and you'll get a complete understanding and control over the conversation, okay? The result of this is you step away from needs, problems, and issues, and you step into a world of understanding and engaging with your client in a far more effective way. Number four, Steve Schiffman methodology of asking questions. Yeah. So number one, the rule of 3 by 3. So what we like to do is past, present, future. We like to ask a question and drill down 3 layers. Then move on to the next area, drill down 3 layers. Doing that 3 times by 3 times. Yeah. Looking at past, present, future. We're not closing them on information. We're understanding them. It's really important. We're not closing them when they tell us something that's really healthy and helpful to us. Don't ask negative questions or leading questions. And prepare your questions beforehand. You should know what you're going to ask. The process you follow, ask a simple open question. 2, listen to what they say, active listening. Process the information. This is the mistake we all make. We don't process. Okay? You've got to process the information. And then repeat back the last few words or ask a question about what they said, and then repeat. So very simple, yeah, very simple. There's a lot of commonality between all the different methodologies, but there's subtle differences as well. So that's questioning listening. That's 4 different methods. Go back and have a listen to those. What I want you to be able to do with those, I want you to be able to practice this with people. So you should have gone through role plays with us. You should be getting feedback on how good you are, how bad you are, and what you need to work on. Then I want you to practice with your friends and your family. Thank you.